Among my specialties as a management consultant is the fact that I am an information technology consultant. And one of my strong suits and a component of information technology consulting is cybersecurity. So I just want to talk about this a bit. In particular, a little bit about some of the methodologies and types of attacks that we in the cyber world run across. So first of all, let me start off with defining a breach as an incident that results in unauthorized access to data, applications, networks, devices, routers, switches, all those things. Unauthorized access will uh, define itself as a breach. And expose those assets to vulnerability. So vulnerabilities then are platforms, configurations, third parties, patches, 0 days. But and an openness and weakness in those vulnerabilities is what we're concerned about. Uh, and another important definition is an exploit. If you exploit those vulnerabilities, that means you're taking advantage of those vulnerabilities. All right, so if we consider all of those as assets, then a threat is a potential to cause loss of an asset. All right, so let me discuss, if you will, a little bit of the cyber attack threat methodologies. I'll separate them into five groups here: nuisance, data threat, cybercrime, hacktivism, and destructive attacks. So let me take that first one. Nuisance, the objective in a nuisance attack is access and propagation. And that happens generally through bots, botnets, spam. Another word for bots is zombies. Uh, some people also call the people that do that bot herders. So, in a sense, that's about remote control. And in many ways, that's often animated mostly through artificial intelligence. So that's rather interesting. It doesn't need much human interaction, and it's not targeted. It's just sort of searching around for vulnerabilities, as I just discussed. The other next category is data theft. Okay, that usually has an economic or political advantage. And what happens here is generally with larger organizations, something called advanced persistent threat. All right, so this is not a tactical happening. This is something that occurs over time. Like the word says, it's persistent. I had someone call me the other day to discuss a potential attack on his email. And after we went through a few things, he felt that he was out of the dark about it and everything was fine. And I said, well, don't be so confident. They may have just been collecting information about you for now, and they'll probably actually do the deed later. So that's what's interesting about theft, data theft. Let's just move on into cyber crimes then. Usually that's pretty deterministic. It's frequently opportunistic, I should say. An example might be like credit card theft. So that has clear financial gain. Okay, a lot of times if people are working on trying to attack your systems and they don't see financial gain, they might move on. The fourth category is hacktivism. Okay, that has to do with defamation of your reputation, of your character. Okay, a lot of times it happens on the website. And finally, destructive attacks. Those kind of attacks attempt to disrupt operations. An example might be deletion of important data. Okay, so let's go through some of the specifics there, looking at common types of cyber attacks. And right at the top of my list is advanced persistent threats. Okay, as I talked about that before, it's something that happens a lot of times in a strategic attack, long-term targeted attacks that break into a network in multiple phases. And the reason for that is to avoid detection. Those phases are reconnaissance, researching and understanding the target; incursion, delivering the malware; discovery, mapping your target's internal defenses; capture, acquiring data over an extended period; and then exfiltration, exploiting the captured information. All right. So, as I said earlier, because you don't see something right away does not mean it's over. They may have been in the reconnaissance stage and they're going to deliver the malware a bit later. Another one that's really quite a nuisance and done on a large scale is what is called distributed denial of service. That's usually when a server is intentionally overloaded, okay, with requests. I recall that happened during an election year on the Democratic website. It was a targeted attempt to overload the server and prevented people from voting. Another thing to be concerned about are inside attacks. All right. A sophisticated software program may not even be required here. All right. Usually it's someone with administrative privileges so that they can, get at the assets easier. Or it could be an ex employee. Many of the research people in this space have found that it's a disgruntled employee, for instance. So, if you're listening, companies need to be careful about um, when they let someone go. They need to clean up behind that person. There may be some protocols in place and user passwords in place. Okay, so you need to clean up behind those. And then, of course, malware or malicious software. That's a program that's introduced into the target's computer with the intent of creating damage. And you'll see that in the form of viruses, spyware, worms, ransomware, Trojan horses, keyloggers, things like that. Okay. Um, and I see four common characteristics. It's concerned with circulation, infection, concealment, or delivering a payload. All right. There are also attacks that we call password attacks. Simple way of attacking them is hackers trying to crack into your password to gain access to your accounts and your databases. And there are three types. There's brute force, where they attempt to guess the passwords, so that might take a while. Then there's called something called a dictionary attack. That uses a program to try different combinations of words, and then finally keylogging tracks all of your keystrokes, a little more effective way of getting in. And then finally, phishing, probably the most commonly deployed form of cyber theft, is collecting sensitive information like credentials, credit card information through legitimate looking but fraudulent websites, often sent to unsuspected individuals. These hackers have become more and more sophisticated over time. So, taking into account all of these cyber attacks and some of the methodologies I just discussed, a small business cybersecurity plan is something that I suggest with clients that I talk to. Okay. So my company, Hamilton Solutions, is involved with that. When people find that any of these things, or they suspect that they need to be concerned about some of the things I talked about, they bring me in as an auditor, and I advise them accordingly. So I hope all of this has been informative, and hopefully you are not one of those that has vulnerabilities of the like that I just spoke about. Thank you for listening. I am Dr. Brandon Hamilton.